Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Cardfight Vanguard deck profile for premium format. As you can tell by our proxy here, we're going to be talking about Stun vs Dragon because I've wanted to talk about him for a good amount, and now that I've had a chance to play around with him, I've got some opinions. So this is Standard Plus, pretty much the deck I used in the Cardfight area video verbatim, except I've made one tweak since then. Mostly because I just couldn't find something, and this itself is based off of a list posted on the G Station channel, so shoutouts to him. But I took a look at the list and then I showed it to people in the Discord that I frequent that actually play Narukami in premium format, and in particular V-Busted Nut Vanguard made some more tweaks to it to deal with a certain problematic matchup, and this is where we're at. So I'll go over the list and then talk about just my thoughts on this deck in premium, and we'll just go from there because Stun vs Dragon is a very interesting card. So anyway, as far as starter goes, any standard starter will do. The important thing here is that you aren't using Hard Raw Drago Kid. That is something that I've seen a couple of people try and incorporate into the Standard Plus variant. And in the past, Hard Rod was okay because it helped you trigger Dragonic Vanquishers continuous, but it's not really needed now, as Stun vs Dragon is able to basically get rid of the cards that Hard Rod would have gotten rid of over the course of its turns. The thing I've noticed is that Stun vs Dragon will get rid of at most 3 or 4 cards out of your opponent's drop zone. Your opponent doesn't really have a very loaded drop zone unless they're playing something like Granblue or Ritual, and even still, I'd rather just have the draw and the quick shield this guy gives you, especially if you're trying to fetch a Vanquisher off of your Mighty Bolt Dragoon skills, and then you have that quick shield to discard and whatnot, versus Hard Rod being able to occasionally get you some extra binds with the Stun vs Dragon. It's just simply not needed anymore, as, like I said, again, outside of some very select decks, you won't be able to actually bind more than like 3 cards out of their drop. So Hard Rod literally does nothing that Stun vs wouldn't do. So yeah, just play a standard starter. Then for the grade 3s, like I said, it's a Standard Plus variant, so it's not going to be that different from what you'd see from Vanquisher. So 4 Vanquisher, 4 Jaggy Shot. They're the bread and butter of this deck. You obviously want to be on Vanquisher as much as possible, and Jaggy Shot is what allows you to do a good majority of your dumb shit, as he is an enabler, he is an extender, and he also goes into the soul to get you that necessary draw to keep up your hand, get you that grade 3 in the soul so you can get the max benefit out of Vanquisher skill. And yeah, not much else to say. Like, I'm very curious what wave 4 of Narukami does in general, because it's gonna have to be something really good to make you want to cut Jaggy Shot if they go with the Dragonic Vanquisher Sparking or Voltage route that I think they might be doing. But yeah, obviously if you're not on Vanquisher and you can't get to it and you have to sit on Jaggy Shot, it's not as fantastic of a deck to play compared to what you normally can do, because Jaggy Shot's an okay Vanguard, but in the format that is premium, you need to be on Vanquisher. Anyway, so not much to say here. Then for the grade 2s, so 3 copies of Cho-Oh, since you are allowed to play him at more than 2 in this format, and I'm actually hoping that on this upcoming ban list that Cho-Oh is just taken off the restricted list, as the format has progressed that I think Cho-Oh at 2 is a hindrance to the deck, and we're just seeing simply more powerful strategies, but that's like for standard. Back on premium here, 3 Cho-Oh, because you can play him in multiples here, and he is one of your best push plays, especially in early game, as it's one of the few things that you can do pre-grade 3 ride. So an issue that I've noticed that is still prominent with this deck is that you don't really have much of an early, it's just simply calling down things and attacking, and you get screwed over by your opponent's damage triggers or whatnot. But yeah, Cho-Oh allows you to get some extra attacks in early game, late game, and he allows you to counter rush, especially if your opponent goes aggro with Zazan, you can at least get rid of some of their attackers. Then 3 copies of Shatra, 2 copies of Zuiten, and 2 copies of Voltec Shred. So Shred is an extender, just like with Jaggy Shot, not much to say here. Zuiten gets you some extra draws and allows you to be aggressive in the early game and then get him out of there so that your opponent can't damage deny you in return, which is again a very prominent thing in the format. Mind you, This deck isn't too counterblast heavy, it's just Vanquisher and Cho-Oh that use it, otherwise all of your other dudes just Soul Blast or are free, which is something that I realized when I was playing against a 0 damage Glendios player. It was like, oh yeah, I can still do my stuff without counterblast. That's cool. But yeah, still, you get the idea behind this guy. And then Shock Trap, because again, it's really good. And that's all I can really say about the grade 2. So the grade 1 is probably where the biggest change compared to the original list is that instead of playing draw PGs, I'm playing the Anastasia from G set 12, which is the Thunderstrike one. So if you don't remember what she does, is she's your basic Sentinel, and then when she's retired from Guardian Circle at Thunderstrike 4, you draw a card, and Thunderstrike 4 is very easy to achieve. And yeah, so why this over the draw PG? And the answer to that is Ichikishima. OTT is a thing, especially since Kaliko Cat Zuzano exists, and Kaliko Cat Zuzano with Ichikishima up is really stupid. And this thing can be used on your opponent's Ichikishima turn. Mind you, if they have Silent Tom, the new Silent Tom I should point out, so if they have Ichi Tom, you can't do anything anyway, but unless they happen to have that very specific setup, you can at least survive their big push turn with Susano and crits and whatnot. So that's why I'm playing this over the draw PGs, as Ichikishima stops those and your G Guardians, and you need something in order to defend against OTT's stupid stuff. So yep, not much else to say here. And then we've got 4 copies of the Stride Fodder, particularly, no wait, it's not 4 Stride Fodder, so 3 copies of the Stride Fodder version of Mighty Bolt Dragoon, and 1 copy of the standard version of Mighty Bolt Dragoon. The original list plays 2 Smashboxer, but I'll be honest, I could only find 1, and I'm not particularly motivated enough to find another one, especially since this guy has that potential to get you your grade 3 on your Vanguard ride, which is really cool. But more often than not, though, you want these guys because, 1, they're Stride Fodders, and you don't want to be ditching Mighty Bolt Dragoon, Jaggy Shot Dragoon. I always get these two mixed up. You don't want to be ditching Jaggy Shot Dragoons off for striding, since you need them to combo. So you play this alongside your Stride Crit, and therefore you have 7 pieces of Stride Fodder. In addition to that, compared to this guy getting you the potential grade 3 and likely whipping some of the time too, you can just simply call this guy down, reveal Jaggy Shot, and just get Dragonic Vanquisher directly from the deck, and then ditch a Rising Phoenix. Not much else to really say here. I do like having the Stride Fodders in here. Then 3 copies of Rising Phoenix, 3 copies of Bajron, and 1 Smashboxer Dragon. So if you don't remember what he does, is first, if he boosts a Thunderstrike unit, the chosen unit and this unit cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects. That is irrelevant because you don't play any main deck Thunderstrike units aside from Anastasia, and you're not going to be calling her down unless you really need to do something as a last ditch. But he's in here for his Thunderstrike 3. After the battle he boosts, and you have a Vanquisher Vanguard. You can throw him into the soul to draw a card and countercharge 1, which is nice. But I found myself not really needing him that frequently, so this could be cut for stuff in the future builds. And as I said earlier, I think there is definitely a lack of aggression that this deck has, which allows it to be taken advantage of by faster decks. And as much as I hate to say it, I think a Zazan package might fix this, as it allows you to be more aggressive in early game. Now, I'm not talking about going the full route with Zazan and the I forget the grade 3 Cray Elemental support that allows you to do some really cheesy stuff. Like, I'm not talking about that particular build of Premium Narukami. I'm just talking about simply playing Zazan, a couple of vanillas, and just giving you some speed so you can push your opponent in, and then you can first stride into something like Voltage or so if you manage to bind enough cards. I doubt that'll happen, but you get the point. And that's it for the usual guys. So then for the triggers, 4 copies of the Into the Soul, give your Vanguard 10k and a draw when your Vanguard attacks. It's actually pretty neat for this deck because you can throw her on an Axel too with Vanquisher's buff up, swing for 19, and then just when Vanquisher attacks, throw Into the Soul, draw a card, potentially hit a Shatra or a Bajron for your extenders to use, and go from there. Then 4 copies of the Stride Fodder crit. Fantastic addition to this, and I'm glad they did it with this collection, as having more Stride Fodder in the main deck is always nice to have. And then running it out 4 copies of the Vanilla Heal and 4 copies of the Vanilla Draw. Still play draws in this deck even with the Anastasia PG because you need to draw into your pieces. And then the reason why we're playing Vanillas is that this extra deck has Cyclone in it, as you can at least in a pinch call these down as attackers or boosters and they'll just be 10k, which is still pretty okay, especially since you'll be applying Vanquisher's buff, so it'll be a 15 attacker and whatnot. Then for the G-Zone, first up is our star of the show itself, Conquering Supreme Dragon, Stun vs. Dragon. I don't know what else I can say about this because most people are pretty much familiar with this guy, either be it in the own pure build of this deck or in the Cray Elemental version of this deck that likes to go into this and then follow it up with the Cyclone. So his skill is, though, for those unfamiliar, you can Soul Blast one and G-flip anything to return him to your G-Zone face up. Then your opponent binds 4 from field, 4 from drop, and then for every 4 cards in your opponent's bind zone, you draw a card and they bind 1 out of hand. To say that this guy is a Trishula on crack is an understatement. That's why I'm using him as my proxies for the second and third copies. So, yeah, Stun vs. Dragon is obviously designed to work with standard Vanquisher. He doesn't really mesh that well with the old G support for Narukami, and truth be told, it's good that way because, let's be honest, Narukami's G support was really underwhelming for the most part. When I think about how good Narukami was in the G format, I think about Brawlers during set 5, and then you had a somewhat playable Thunderstrike deck in set 12, but one, that deck was in a format where there were better decks existing, like Battle Sisters and Time and ZTB, and then the set afterwards immediately crept that out, and Thunderstrike was never good again. So yeah, we're fine with this because this guy doesn't really work that well with Classic Vanquisher or Sparking, as they require you to be on other strides to get mileage out of them, and the other strides in this deck just simply aren't as worth to use. There's like one other old stride in here that's worth playing, but otherwise you just want to be on Stunverse and you want to go into that other stride. But other cards you can pair Stunverse with, I guess, would be Gauntlet Buster, so you can get that easy 33k 3 crit swing. No, 32k, my bad. No, 22. It's been a while since I played with Gauntlet. Let's see, you could pair him up with the Gauntlet Buster. You could pair him up with Drill, I guess, because you could just wipe the board and get the restand, but Vanquisher just does more. You get that 10k buff and the ability to multi-attack with the Vanquisher engine, which is just really strong. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about that. So moving on to the rest of the G-Zone. As far as cards that you actually play go, you've also got Draconic Vanquisher Voltage, which is your finisher in the deck. Resolving 1 Stun vs. Dragon alone will usually get you to +8 cards in Bind Zone, which means this guy will be 24k or more to the front for his Generation Break 3. Resolving a second Stun vs. Dragon will make this even more. If this is likely going to be your second or third stride, depending on how effective the Stun vs. Dragon was on your first stride, and then he will ideally kill your opponent off. And if they survive this, then, well, I guess they're just luckier than you. As for other cards, 2 copies of V-Buster. It's just here to be flipped with Stunverse 2 and 3, so that you have Vanquisher's face up for VMAX to do his thing. VMAX is an interesting card in 2020 because you have more decks now that can call things to the board during battle phase, Dismal Seas play, but if you're up against a matchup that doesn't have the ability to build a board during your attack, or your opponent just happens to have an open board because they forgot to keep things in play against Narukami, then you can potentially cheese them with this guy, because Thunderstrike 5 is a lot easier to achieve now than it was back in the day, let me tell you that. Then, 1 copy of the Prognitor Dragon. Get to go into this thing. Stunverse is almost always just going to do more. 1 copy of our Generation Break 8. If you somehow manage to get to this point in the game, then actually I could see a Generation Break 8 turbo build of this deck coming out in the future with the not only Zazam, but you've also got the Order that also flips so that you can try and get to this guy quickly. As Closer Dragon with Axel Circles in itself is actually pretty silly. And 1 copy of the Cray Elemental. So while this card is face up in G-Zone, your non-effect units, basically your vanillas and your trigger vanillas, get plus 5k, which makes your draw triggers a 10k beater or a booster. And he's what you flip up with the first Stun vs. Dragon. So really, in order of relevance, you just got, let's see, this, then this, and this, and this. And what? Actually, no, I did that wrong. There you go. You've got stun verse 1, stun verse 2, which you flip for it, then you go into your voltage, and then that's pretty much how your games go. So, yeah, not much to say here. Like, that's pretty much what Premium Collection 2 in particular has done to a lot of decks. Is you just play your strong, good stride now, and then you just play things to flip up for it, as well as your finisher stride. And Narukami was never lacking in finisher strides. It's just we never had a good first stride. Then for the G Guardians, 2 copies of Impede Dragon, who's still utterly fantastic in the format. If you play a build that plays Zazan or the Order, then this guy gets better because you can impede them going first, or going second actually. So Impede will be live more often than not. And yeah, to this day, people still look at Impede and go, what? You mean I lose a dude? And yes you do. You get to choose what dies, but Impede still gets to kill 1 or 2 things, and since he binds them, it helps build towards Stunverse Dragon. Then 2 copies of Bulwark Dragon. Stunverse, ironically enough, made this card fantastic, because now it is so easy to get both of his effects off. Thunderstrike 3, continuous 10k shield, and the fact that it is a continuous 10k shield as opposed to an auto is actually relevant versus some specific cards, particularly Brad Arrow if your opponent's playing the Brad Arrow Zoa deck, as it's not an auto ability, so Brad Arrow doesn't turn it off. And after he is retired from Guardian Circle, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards at rest for every 4 cards in your bind zone, and you kill it. And because Stunverse gets at least 4 cards, or even 8 in bind zone, it's potentially possible to wipe out their entire front row with this guy, and that's pretty cool. But the important thing here is that because of his errata, he gets retired from Guardian Circle and does his thing, as opposed to after the battle that it's placed. So the timing in which you're able to kill things has been changed, and I believe more often than not it's more favorable to you, because the mechanics go, this guy is retired from Guardian Circle, and the battle units activate. So you could do things like kill a restander, a restanding rear guard before it gets the chance to restand, depending on what the timing activation for it is. So yeah, that's a nice little thing to have happened. And then for the last G Guardian, I've seen Dismal in a couple lists. You could also play Algleam or the Rock Tome, I believe it's called. I'm going with Brahma as, really, this G Guardian is more or less throwaway because you're going to flip it up for Impede half the time. But I chose to go with Brahma as he has the ability to at least be a plus 10,000 shield if you needed 2 G Guardian going first because you rode to grade 3 first, and you don't happen to have enough cards set up so that you can get a Bulwark Dragon off. Brahma can at least be an easy 10k shield, and binding your own cards contributes towards a closer dragon. So I decided to go with this over something else. And that's the deck. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with how it's performed. As a whole, I'd say it is probably tier 2 and high tier 2. It has the potential to be tier 1. The format needs to be changed in order to make this, though, a tier 1 deck, because there's just simply more unfair strategies out there. Looking at Zazan OTT or just Calico Cat OTT with the new standard support. Obviously, DI is a problem that still needs to be addressed. The Gas Steel Stride is bonkers, and I've always felt that it was just as broken, if not more so broken, than Katrina. And obviously, the suspects from last year, from the past while, I think should still be cleaned up to some degree. As far as what the format would be like if Zazan died and DI died, I don't know what it would be, but I'm sure the people who are more versed in Premium than I am would be able to comment on that, as I'll admit, my knowledge of Premium is rather lacking. I don't pay attention to the format as much, and I don't play it as much either, so all I've got to go on are second-hand results from people who've played the format and watching some test videos from people who may or may not read their cards properly half the time. And that's all I really got to say about that. So all in all, this deck has the potential to be better. Some things just have to change. And yeah, as far as the things I immediately change about this deck, I think cutting Smashboxer out and putting in Zazan is something I'd like to do. Incorporating just a Zazan or the Order engine to give yourself some better early game is definitely something I'd like to try out. And hopefully Narukami Wave 4 also fixes the whole issue of not having a good early game, as again, you don't really do much until you get to grade 3, and even then, riding Vanquisher, if your opponent doesn't have a board to bind, isn't that productive, and I can see why people would tech the Gauntlet Buster in here for that. But in any case, that's all I got to say about this. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down below on what you're doing with your premium Narukami deck and how you're playing it. And yeah, until next time, this is Blue Starter 9, checking out. His skill is once per turn. None of the older Narukami variants really benefit from this.